All right, so to make fermented hot sauce, you want to start with peppers, and these are super hot. These are probably some variety of the Trinidad Moruga Scorpion, which is one of the hottest peppers known to man, but I'm not sure exactly what these yellow and orange ones are. I just know that they're really hot. You can use jalapenos, serranos, whatever you want. The hotter the pepper, the hotter the sauce. Weigh the peppers. This came to 346 grams, obviously without the bowl. You want to know how much the peppers weigh, preferably without the stem. And once you know what the peppers weigh, you weigh 5% of that weight in salt. So this is 346 grams. 5% of that is about 17.5 grams. I have 18 grams of salt. I can't measure to the half gram, but you can always go a little bit over rather than a little bit under. And I take my food processor. You notice I'm outside because if I do this inside with these super hot peppers, the fumes will overwhelm the house and my family. Believe me, I tell you, it's not worth doing. When I'm cleaning up this Cuisinart, I'm gonna do it first with the garden hose outside before bringing it inside, putting it immediately in the dishwasher and running it, because if this pepper juice and fumes are in my house for any length of time, it's going to overwhelm the kitchen. Put the peppers in, put the salt in. What we're doing here is making a hot pepper mash that is going to ferment. There's one pesky pepper in there that doesn't want to grind, so I'm moving him around a little bit. That's what happens. Okay, it's fully ground. Okay, now I'm gonna take and put it into, I'm using a vacuum sealer, so I'm putting it in a vacuum seal bag. There's an alternate method that I'll talk about in a moment. If you don't have a vacuum sealer, a proper vacuum sealer, Food Saver's not gonna work because that's not a proper vacuum. That's gonna do a suction and it's gonna suck the juice out, and that's a problem. So if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can do it in a bowl. It's tricky to get this in here, so I don't really want to touch my skin with it. You notice I'm wearing gloves. I also am wearing sunglasses. Proper safety glasses is probably a better idea, but you really, really don't want to get this in your eyes. You don't want to get it on your hands. You don't want it on your skin at all. If it's jalapenos, those aren't as hot, not as big of a deal, but you'll know it if it gets in your eyes. So I strongly recommend glasses and gloves. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is seal this. See the vacuum sealed bag. I do have a proper chamber vacuum sealer, which makes it a lot easier. I'll do a quick video on the bowl method as well, so you know how to do that if you don't have a vacuum sealer. But this is the preferred method because this bag will start to inflate as the peppers ferment. In about 2 weeks, this bag will be puffed up. When it's puffed up and wanting to burst at the seams, I'm definitely ready to go for the next step. All right, so as promised, I'm gonna show you how to ferment these peppers in a bowl. I already showed you how to do that in a proper vacuum seal bag. Most people don't have a proper vacuum sealer. It's not really a typical home thing. So I'm gonna show you how to do it in a bowl. Same product, same result, just to, you wanna make sure that you keep it covered. So I'll show you how to do that. So I have some different peppers here. These are just from my local supermarket. Shows that you can use really whatever you want. If you see some like this that maybe are a little funky, either toss it or you can trim it a little bit, and take the rotten part off and get rid of that and still use the rest. All right, so I got stems. I mentioned before, generally I pick the stems off. It's not the end of the world, but before I weigh them, if I'm gonna take the stems off, I'll go ahead and take them off. All these peppers, the stems came off easy. I just popped them off. But if the pepper's not really ripe, or if it's a different type of pepper like this cherry pepper, you may need to use shears. You don't need to get all that, just take that off, okay? All right, now I wanna weigh these. Put the bowl on the scale, turn the scale on. That zeroes it out. I've got it in grams just because it's easier to calculate 5% for the salt from a bigger number of grams than a less exact number of ounces, but it really doesn't make any difference. So that is 325 grams, right? 5% of that would be, what, about 16 17 grams of salt. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put these in here. I'm going to take a smaller bowl for my salt. Put that on, turn it on, zero it out. Any salt will do, because kosher salt and fine salt by weight will be the same amount of salt. By volume is different, but by weight you're always going to get the same result. 17 grams. And just like before, while I'm doing that, I've selected this bowl. The trick is knowing what size bowl based on how many peppers you have, and I really don't know the answer to that. It's just a bit of a crapshoot, but I do know that this plate nests pretty well within that bowl. Okay, so I'm going to give that a whirl. If you have one of these rubber spatulas, it's the shape of a spoon, it makes it a lot easier to get your pepper mash out than the one that I used in the previous video. I can tell just by the aroma of this that it'll be nowhere near as spicy as what I made the other day in the previous video, which is probably a good thing because that's really hard to eat. So I'll scrape all this out. Hopefully I didn't get too big of a bowl for the amount of pulp that I have here. As long as I can get that tight fitting plate on it, I think it'll be okay. All right, so now I'll take this plate, right, from this guy. This is perfect. I'm gonna press down on that, right? Oops, okay. I don't really want it running over, but a little bit is okay. Now here you can see I have a Ziploc bag full of water. That water is not going anywhere. It's in the Ziploc. I don't want it to go anywhere. I just want to set it on top here and let it slide into the cracks, okay, like so. If I have too much water, which I do, I can actually just release a little bit carefully out to the corner until it has a little bit of balance. Try to push some of the air out. Okay, now that's balanced pretty well. Okay, I could even like stick a little tape on there, but now I'll set this in here just in case I have any sort of leakage at any time. Okay, I just want to make sure that that stays covered. Okay, if I don't mess around with that and I just leave it for a couple of weeks, that's going to ferment just fine. There's no oxygen able to get there, and whether I do it in a vacuum seal bag or this bowl method, what I'm looking for is anaerobic fermentation, which means fermentation without oxygen. If you have aerobic fermentation, you will also promote mold development, and you don't want that. Okay, so when I brought this back inside, I realized that that gallon Ziploc bag I had was too big. It would be better if I was using a bowl like this. The gallon Ziploc bag would have been perfect, but this bowl is a lot smaller, so I realized that a quart-size Ziploc bag was better size, so I swapped it out, and you can see it nests in there perfectly. Now this has been fermenting for about a month. It really depends on temperature. If your room temperature is in the mid-70s, you know, low to mid-70s, probably a couple weeks is fine, but if it's in the mid-60s like it has been in my house for the last month or so, you might want to go a little bit longer. But you can see on this, I had it on this pan in case it bubbled over, which it did. You can see that it bubbled over a little bit, and I can see a little bit of evidence of that in the cracks here, which is actually really good. It means that it was fermenting. It means that there was activity in there, so it should be fine. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to take this off. It's interesting, it's a little stuck in there. Okay, just get rid of that. Okay, and woo, you can sure smell it. So now I'm gonna take this plate out of here. You can see like a little touch of mold there. That's okay. Okay, that looks really good. Little itty bitty bit of mold is absolutely no big deal. I don't see any more. Okay. So that's very fermented. That worked really well. Stuck to my pan. I can smell it. Smells fermenty. It's really good. Take all that pulp. I've got a mesh strainer and a measuring cup here. Okay. Put that there. The best way to get the juice out of this is if you take a ladle or a spoon or something and just press this. You can see the juice going through. This was just a small batch. Demonstration purposes. So I don't have a whole lot of juice here. Quarter cup, third of a cup. And so I'll put about the same amount of vinegar in there. This is white vinegar, just like this. I just keep it in a Johnny Walker bottle with a speed pour. Now I pour that over the top of the peppers because there's still more goodness in there. Press it through. You can see that came through not looking like vinegar because there's still a lot of good juice back in those peppers. Put that in there. I think I'll put a little bit more, but ultimately I'm just going to taste. That's very good. That's hotter than I thought it was going to be. Put a touch more vinegar, especially since that's mostly pepper juice. And that's it. So that's your fermented hot pepper sauce. You can bottle that, put it in a jar, do with it as you like. Know that it will separate. All you got to do is shake it, and this will be shelf stable for up to 2 years, probably before it starts browning. This pulp here, you can pitch it, put it in your compost, whatever. You can also, depending on how hot it is, if your hot sauce is really hot, then this pulp is gonna be pretty darn hot. You can put it in a pot of beans, if you're making a pot of beans, or a pot of chili, or something like that. It's certainly got a lot of flavor in it. You could put it in with some vinegar as it is, and make like a little, what do they call that? Fire water. Let it sit in the vinegar for, another week or so and strain it out, and then the vinegar will be hot like the pepper. Back to the vacuum sealed method. You can see how much this bag has expanded. That's due to the fermentation, and basically all that's in there is, I guess it'd be CO2. It's whatever the gases are produced from fermenting. There's certainly no air in there. It would be moldy if that was the case, if there was oxygen in there, but the vacuum sealing has prevented it from being exposed to oxygen, so it's really good. So if I had more volume in there, this bag would be a little bit bigger and wanting to burst, but this is a pretty small volume for a large bag, so I think this is about as big as it's gonna get. When it's puffed like that, you know it's fermented and it's good to go, okay? So I probably should be wearing gloves and glasses for this as well, but I'm gonna wing it. Wow. The smell coming out of there is really amazing. Okay, so I'm not putting my nose in there because I know how hot these peppers are, but I can smell the fermentation and the peppers, and it's super hot. So similar to when I opened up that bowl, I've got a lot of pulp here that I'm gonna squeeze through. All right, I realized that gloves were really a smart thing to do, and laziness usually turns into burned skin or burned eyes or whatever, so I stopped for a minute and put on gloves, and now I can really get this stuff out of here. I'm not worried about my hands, which will then touch other parts of me, and that's really not a good thing. Eyes are the worst. don't think I'm gonna do much better than that. And it's gonna be dangerous if I do. Same deal as what we did with the hot sauce that we fermented in a bowl. Press this through. I have a large conical strainer that I would use if I was doing a larger batch of this. For a small batch like this, this is fine. It's hot, really hot, and I can smell it. But unlike grinding the peppers into the mash, I can actually do this inside. The fermentation has tempered the overwhelming capability of these peppers. They're still god-awfully hot. Don't think that it's mellowed it out much at all. It's super thick. That's about a quarter cup as we had before. I just did a cardinal sin of touching my bottleneck to the peppers, which means that next time I use that vinegar for something else, it might be a little spicy. That's almost half a cup there, but still a lot of that is pulp, juice from the pulp, so it's not half and half yet. Vinegar, add a little more vinegar. Once this hot, we can use a little bit more vinegar. This is when you kind of separate the men from the boys when you taste this. That's really hot. That's great. I think you can use a little bit more vinegar. So I'm gonna add a little more. I feel hiccups coming on. Wow. This is the kind of sauce that you make and give it to your friends who you want to torture a little bit. See if what they're made of. It's not something you want to eat at home in large quantities. But as I said before, make it with any peppers you want. And so then you'll get any degree of hotness that you want. Yowza. That's really something. You notice I did this before. I just turned my spoon and used the backside, so I'm not putting my saliva in that. Probably not a good thing for long-term storage. That's good. Ooh, it's hot. Now, I'm gonna fill bottles with this. I can actually put a little bit more vinegar in it. Ooh. And filling the bottle, it's always a little tricky. So I've got small bottles here. I get these from SKS Packaging online. I think they're like 144 per case. They're cheap. There's a lot of different sizes. You can get bigger bottles like this. This is the one I made before. You can see how it separates, as I mentioned. Then you shake it up and it's good to go. So that's no problem. So to fill these, get one of my trusty hands in case I spill. This is my turkey baster. And I put that in there, in this little funnel. Or this IKEA funnel would also work. Put this in here. And go slowly. My mouth and whole body is pretty much on fire right now. a little bit of airspace between the end of the funnel and the bottle. Otherwise it might build up inside the funnel. You don't know how much you have. When you pick the funnel up, it'll overflow. My nose is running. I'm pretty much in agony right now. As I mentioned before, this will have a shelf life of about 2 years or so. You'll notice with this really bright red sauce, kind of like Tabasco, that if it starts to brown, that's when you know that it's gone off. And it really just means that the flavor's off. It's not bad for you or anything, but it just doesn't taste good anymore. So what I'm gonna do with this little pulp here is I'm gonna make fire water. So I'll put the pulp in there. Ooh. And put a ton of vinegar. Just go ahead and get this stuff off here. That'll be plenty. So I'll mix this up. I'll put it in a jar and I'll let it sit for a week or 3 and then strain it. And then that vinegar that's remaining will be super hot and you can use it for whatever you want. So that's your ungodly hot fermented hot sauce. The fermentation creates lactic acid from the peppers. It really creates a depth of flavor, and it's a traditional method of making hot sauce, what Tabasco does, what everybody really does. Very different than just grinding peppers and putting them with vinegar straight away. That would be acetic acid, doesn't really ferment. And this gives you a much better flavor, gives you shelf stability, and it's really delicious, and you can make it as hot as you want. Straight jalapenos are gonna be easy to eat, like candy, your kids can eat it. This is gonna be like, you know, as hot as it gets, and super hard to heat, and super good to torture your friends with. So enjoy, and feel free to comment if you have any questions. Thanks.